garden, but you don't have the space in your yard or maybe the ability to get out in your yard. Keep watching and I'm going to show you a back porch or front porch alternative. Hi everyone, I'm Audra and this is my Magnolia Street garden. And today is another collaboration video with the Schmieding Center for Senior Health in Springdale, Arkansas. I'm really glad you're here. Today I'm going to show you how to make a garden in one single pot. Something that you can easily take care of, easily gather the supplies for. You can still have your garden, but without all the effort out in the yard. I'm going to show you some of the things I have that you're going to need here today. And the first is a pot. Now when you're picking a pot for a container garden, you want to pick a big one. A lot of times people's container gardens fail because they don't have a big enough pot and there's not enough space for the roots to properly grow. So you want to pick something that seems a little bit too big, and then that's probably just right. I got this pot in my local home improvement store for about $14. Next thing you're going to need is a good potting mix, something that's specially designed for raised beds or containers that's going to control the moisture. And one of my favorite ones is this Miracle-Gro moisture control potting mix. I have used this over and over in my raised containers and it works so good. It helps It helps you keep from overwatering and underwatering. It really is a miracle in how it helps control the moisture for you. So make sure you get a really good quality potting mix. And this comes in this 50-quart giant bag, and it also comes in a smaller bag that's easier to handle and to put into your car. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put on my gloves and I'm going to go ahead and fill up this pot with my potting mix. So we've got our pot all filled with the moisture control potting mix, and now we're ready to start talking about some today. Our one pot garden is going to be a salsa garden. And what are the things you need for a great salsa? Tomatoes, peppers, and maybe cilantro. So that's what I'm going to pot in my big pot today. So I have two different kinds of tomatoes. This one is a Roma tomato and it's a determinate. Now there's two different types of tomatoes, determinate and indeterminate. Determinate just means that this is going to grow to a certain height and not put out vines everywhere. So this isn't going to be too big. And on the tag at the home improvement store, this said that this is really good for raised beds. And which means it's also probably fine for containers also. Now my other tomato that I have here today is called a husk cherry red hybrid cherry tomato. And it's indeterminate. And that means that it's going to grow a little bit bigger. However, on the tag for this one, it also said that it is good for container gardening. So that means that it's probably not going to get too big. So I'm going to put just one of these tomatoes in my pot today, but I wanted to just show you the difference between the determinate and indeterminate tomato plants. So be sure you look for that whenever you're buying a tomato, and also check if it's good for growing in the ground, growing in a raised bed, or growing in a container. And if you're going for a container, you want to go with the container. So when you're at the store trying to pick a good tomato, here's a couple things to look out for. You want to pick a tomato that doesn't have any yellowing on it. Like you can see here how these leaves are kind of spotty and yellowy. That's called tomato rust, and that's you don't want that. So if you have a tomato plant like that, you actually want to clip off that leaf and throw it away completely. On this plant, this one looks pretty good. It has a lot of lower leaves though, and when you pot a tomato, you want to bury it pretty deep. So I'm actually going to leave only about this much of the plant sticking out. So below that, I am going to snip off all the leaves and bury this guy really deep. And there's a bit of a sucker here that I'm going to go ahead and snip that off too. There, that looks good. So now I'll bury it probably up to about right there. And it will actually root off this stem. So this could turn into a really big root ball, which will mean that you will get a higher yield of tomatoes. The thing we're going to put in our container garden today is a pepper. And I'm not one for a lot of heat, so this guy is actually called a jalapeno pepper. It has the classic flavor of a jalapeno, but without the heat. which I think is great. Now, if you like heat, you can go ahead and grab a hot pepper, a regular jalapeno, or something else and pop in your garden just the same. Last thing we're gonna put in our pot is cilantro. Now, some people love cilantro and some people think it tastes like soap. So if you are one of those people that think cilantro tastes like soap, then by all means, leave this out. So I'm just gonna pick off some of these yellow kind of dead leaves around the bottom. And actually, I'm gonna give you a secret about cilantro. This cilantro is ready and perfectly good to eat right now. Cilantro tends to bolt or flower whenever it gets kind of hot. So actually, probably the ideal thing to do for your container garden would be to plant the cilantro by seed. And then by the time the seeds germinate and come up, you may have tomatoes and peppers ready. Right now, this cilantro is gonna be ready way before your tomatoes and peppers. So it'd probably be ideal to put this by seed. Decide to go with seeds for your cilantro. Don't get discouraged if they don't come up too quickly. Cilantro usually takes a long time to germinate, maybe even 2 weeks. So just be patient and wait, and it'll eventually come up. It's time to get these plants into the pot. I'm gonna save the tags because I'm gonna put those in the pot with the plants so I can remember what it is I planted. And these are Bonnie pots, which means they come in a plantable pot, but they have this plastic ring around them, which you want to take off. So I'm going to take that off. And I'm also just going to kind of peel back this peat pot to expose the root ball. Okay. And then remember, we want to go deep with the tomato. So I'm kind of going to section this off in threes. 1/3 of the pot will be for the tomato, 1/3 for the pepper, and 1/3 for the cilantro. So I'm gonna make a pretty deep hole and then put that guy way down in there so that just a little bit is out. And like I said, roots will form off of all of that stem. All right, so there's the tomato. Next, we're gonna do the jalapeno pepper. And this guy doesn't need to be as deep. This has really good roots. You can see it's coming out the pot, and I actually may end up leaving part of that pot there so I don't disturb the roots too much. And then I'm gonna get another 1/3 of my pot going here. A nice hole. Stick that guy down in there. Okay, lastly, cilantro, and I'm going to use my little pot trick for this. So I'm going to kind of make an indentation and then put the whole pot in there so it makes a perfect spot for the root ball to go in. And then I'll just kind of squeeze and shake this guy out gently. And then I can plop that right down into that spot. And there you have it. So lastly, we want to talk about fertilizer. Now this Miracle-Gro potting mix that we got does have some built-in fertilizer, but when my plants are babies like these, especially when I'm starting late in the season, I want to give them a little jump start. If you don't want to mess with mixing up crystals in water and trying to fertilize, these fertilizer sticks are a perfect way to go. They come in a little package and you just pop them into the plant right next to the roots. So you take one little fertilizer stick, and I'm just gonna use my finger and make a little hole down there by the roots, and I'm just gonna pop that down in there, and then that will naturally dissolve as I water the plant. So I'm gonna do one for the tomatoes now, make a hole with my finger, pop that in, and now one for the cilantro. And there you have some nice kind of time release fertilizer. And now I'm gonna stick my tags back in there so I don't forget what I have going. And now we're ready for some structure. Okay, so your tomato plant is definitely gonna need some structure as it grows. That means it's gonna get big and it's gonna need something to help hold it up. So I picked up at my local home improvement store this tomato cage. I think it was about $6. And I'm just gonna put this in here, and this will support both the tomato and the pepper plant as it grows. So I'm just gonna bend these little legs out just a little bit wider. And then I'm just gonna insert this carefully right into the middle of my pot. take a little adjusting to get it set. And there we have it. It seems like overkill now, but trust me, once your tomato starts growing, it's gonna need all the support it can get. All that's left is for me to find a nice place on my porch to put this. Remember that you want this to have sunshine, so pick a spot on your porch where it's gonna have probably 6 hours of sun a day. Or you may even need to scoot the pot in and out of the sun during the day if you want to do that. Also, this is pretty heavy once you get it filled up with dirt and everything. So if you're not where you're able to lift this much, make sure you do your potting right where you want the pot to be. So if you know the spot on your porch, put your pot there and then fill it up with everything so you don't have to move it after you're finished. So you want to water your container pot every day or two. A great thing to do is to come over to the soil and kind of use your fingers and dig down a few inches. And if it's pretty moist down in there, then you're probably okay. But if it gets dried out any further than maybe 3 or 4 inches, and you know it's probably time to water again, especially if it's hot outside. So just monitor that according to the weather and use your common sense. And really, with this Miracle-Gro moisture control potting mix, you can't go wrong. It's going to help keep you from over and under watering your plants. There you have it, a whole garden in one pot. And this one is going to help you make some really great tasting salsa. I hope this inspires you to put a garden pot on your porch. It doesn't have to be tomatoes and peppers, it can be whatever it is you like. You can even start stuff from seeds here. Please hop on over to our YouTube channel to subscribe for more videos just like this one. Please leave a comment and let us know that you're watching. We'll see you next time.